My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave Dubois. And have you ever wondered how an ICU doc turned to real estate to reshape his family's future? Today, my guest, Daniel Grove from 100 Gates Properties, shares his unique journey as a buy and hold investor using creative finance strategies and managing the intricate details of real estate deals. Daniel, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
This is exciting. I'm glad to do this. Thank you so much.
So you're zooming in today from Baltimore, and I've been to that city. We got to talking, and you said, I invest everywhere. So tell everyone a little bit about how many properties and whereabouts they're located.
Yeah. So my journey was, I was part of a private practice of doctors that we would build up a whole business. And then we got sort of a hostile takeover by one of these giant corporate health systems came in and took us over, and the job got to be more about the numbers and the spreadsheets and the patients. And so I started looking and thinking about ways that I could have flexibility, that I could have more freedom, so I don't have to be dependent on them as much in the event that they decide to make me do something I didn't want or start cutting salaries and stuff like that. So I started researching investing in real estate, and I got into bigger pockets. Like I did this sort of the basic thing, and I tried to get a Burr Investments. I went all in. I took a home equity loan. I did all my savings, and I found two houses in Detroit because obviously with the Burr method, you have to buy at a super discount, and I couldn't afford anywhere else with the money I had. So I got those houses. I found property management. I found rehab people. But I sort of realized that that I wasn't going to be able to do much after that because all my money was sunk into these two properties. And so I wasn't going to be able to scale that. So then I got into creative finance. I don't know if you ever heard of the Sub-2 community in Pace Morby. So I was introduced to that, and I joined that mentorship in that community. And then I started focusing entirely on creative finance. And being a part of that community has been not just the education, but the networking. And so then I started to find deals where instead of just putting all my money into the deal, I found, low entry or sometimes like no money deals where I connected with an investor. I found a deal and would go from there using subject to, using seller finance. So then I found a seller finance deal in North Georgia. That's an Airbnb. I found a sub-2 deal in Central Florida, and then two sub-2 deals in Baltimore. One of them is a long-term rental. One of them is rented by the room. And then I'm about to close on one in Alabama, another sub-2 deal. And so the education, the community, the network. And so now I'm working on next scaling up, connecting with people who want to invest in these deals with exchange for the cost of entry. I would find the deal and we'd split the equity, sort of private money partnerships, and just to grow as much as I can.
So how much is it costing you to get into these sub deals these days?
From nothing. So a couple of deals I found lenders that join me in the deal. Usually it's less than 50,000.
Okay.
So one of the Detroit deals, I was able to get a DSCR loan and then put that into another house. And so, so that's sort of been kind of recycling that money.
So any sort of challenges along the way in your journey? I mean, you said before the show, you're just over a year in now.
So I started investing last February. So about a year. Yeah. Actually, really February, March. Yeah. So, I mean, there are like tons of challenges, balancing my schedule, my life. I have 5 kids. And so, fixing all that around, squeezing in the investing part of it, the connecting part of it. And then just like typical mistakes, right? Like I started a YouTube channel, and I'm gonna add to the Instagram. You can see my handle there. I'm gonna add
Mm,
those to the Instagram. I call it sub two screw ups, which is like sort of mistakes that I made, not major stuff, but sort of things that I learned from that, somebody else could learn from, so that they,
mhm.
you know, a fool learns from his own mistakes. The wise person learns from somebody else's, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, but like there was some issues, there's some complications related to the sub two deal where um, if you don't transitioning the insurance, keeping relationships with the original sellers. Um, and so I think probably though, I don't know that this is unique to me. I think that like whenever you get into something new like this, there's going to be all kinds of mistakes. A lot of my deals I put too much in. I probably could have negotiated. I'm sure I could have negotiated them down more. If I was approaching those deals now, I probably would have get them for cheaper. But the advantage, I think a lot of people get analysis paralysis. I think when I committed to that home equity loan, I was like, there's no option. Like
Mhm.
I burnt the ship's home, as they say.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I was in, and I was like, I got to figure this out. So we'll screw up, we'll figure it out. We're not gonna find a perfect deal. We're gonna find a good enough deal, and then build from there, and then eventually learning along the way, so that the next one's better, and the next one's better, the next one's better. So I think probably these are the challenges that probably most people have to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, you're just about a year in, so I'm sure there'll be lots more interesting things for you to navigate and to we do get better at negotiating. I think early on, a lot of people are worried about losing the deal, so they kind of give a little bit extra. They're like, or they kind of feel a little bit of a bleeding heart, like, oh, the story, he needs the
Right.
money. Yeah, he wants the money. Does he need the money? Could you have done the deal for less? I mean, at the end of the day, there's a saying, access is is more important than cost. So being able to like acquire these units without all the extra nonsense of closing and bringing
Right.
20% down and all this other money, you really want to look at that strategy and say access is a lot more important than the cost ultimately, because now you're in control of these assets without actually necessarily transacting it in a conventional way. So um, what are your plans for the rest of 2024 as you pass the 1 year mark and beyond?
So yeah, so my goal now is entirely networking, connecting with people who there's a lot of people out there I think that have 30,000 in the bank
Mm-hmm.
that they would want to get into real estate, but they either are afraid to or they don't have the time, and that they would say, okay, well, if I can find a deal, because I've built this huge network, because that's been sort of the thing that's the most valuable thing that I've done in this year is build a network, which I'm going to continue to do. Right.
Yeah.
I love meeting people. I love connecting, helping other people if I can. Although, listen, when I'm new, there's only so much I can help. But like now that I'm getting more experience helping people and say, okay, listen, I can connect with people. I can connect with wholesalers. I can connect with other investors, sellers. And
Mm-hmm.
then I can bring this together. I can say, okay, listen, you have 30,000. I can find a deal. We'll partner. I'll give you 50% of the deal. Then you get the experience of being in real estate. I'll do a lot of all the work. We can split it that way that you can have the investment without as much of the risk. And then I can get into the deal without the capital because I'm out of capital. So
Mm-hmm. So far, what would you say your unfair advantage is? What comes easy to you that other people might find difficult to do?
um, I mean, I have a pretty decent motor, right? Like I do not like I've never been comfortable chilling, you know what I mean? Like I want to do stuff. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm always like interested. I always like to do and grow and learn, and I love learning new things of any kind. And so I also I had the advantage of I had saved up for a long time and I have a very good salary. And so fortunately, I bought a house 10 years ago that, and now it was worth a lot more. So I was able to
Mm-hmm.
access that equity. So I was able to leverage my willingness to do the work and the money I'd saved for 20 years and the blessing I had of a house that had appreciated in value. So those were the advantages I had. And then obviously joining the sub two community was a huge advantage, not just the education, but just to be able to meet with people, connect with people who are 2, 3, 5 years ahead, sort of where I am, or maybe just the same sort of stage, but much more successful than me, and say,
Mm.
okay, how did you do it? Like, how can we, how can we help each other?
Yeah, because there is a certain amount of. I had this young guy on the show a couple of days ago. He's like 23 or 24, and he was saying that it only took one person to prove that he could retire by 35, and then it changed his whole mindset.
Right.
Now he's retired, and he's retired at 25. So he was able to put it together, and
I don't think you
like
get
you're
to say you're
saying,
retired at 25. I think you have to work a certain amount of years before you can call it retiring, right?
gainfully unemployed is the word we use.
Exactly. Yeah,
Gainfully
yeah.
unemployed. But no, he's still hustling hard and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
I'm
I
sure he's
think
not
people look
retired.
at it and say like they've hit their lifestyle limit in passive income. So now they can continue to exist without having
Right.
um to do anything. But yeah, I would bet you'd never catch that guy. He's like kind of like you. He can't stop. He has no
Yeah.
off button. That's how you
Right.
get to where
Yeah,
you are,
yeah.
you know?
I don't want to quit my job. I never want to quit my job. I always like to work. I just never want to. I want to be able. I want to not have to work.
Mm-hmm. There's a difference in the mentality too. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I have to go to work. No, I get to go to work.
Right.
That's the whole thing. So, when you're funding these deals right now, are you bringing on capital partners, or are you still self-financing mostly?
Both. So now I'm finishing up on the self financing. Some of these deals you can do. There's ways to do a deal where you get a sub two deal and then you resell it
Mm-hmm.
and you carry the note. So you
Mm-hmm.
finance it to somebody else and they give you a down payment. So sometimes I've been able to recycle some money that way. So
Mm-hmm.
the down payment covers the entry fee. And so yes, now my goal now is to network with private money people, not necessarily professional, like neighbors, friends, strangers, like anybody I'll meet. It's funny, like I always tell people like I'm getting into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Even though, like, even in the beginning when I didn't have anything, right? Because you never know, right? And you find out like people have a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, and they want to get in, but they're either too afraid or they don't have time or they don't. And you can say,
Mm-hmm.
listen, so I'll partner with anybody if it's a good deal and I can find the money. Let's do it.
Yeah, I remember when the craziest thing is like I was raising capital. This would have been in my first and second year, and I never thought to call my grandmother at the time.
Right.
And then, you know, she passes away, rest in peace. But we find out she has 300 and something thousand in her checkings account, just like not in the savings, not
No,
even
no.
accruing. She's just been hoarding it in the checking account. And that just goes to show like ask, don't assume about your people that are in your friends and family circuit. You never know who's got capital. And when you're self-limiting your own list, that's when you start to pass over. Perfect example. I passed over my grandmother because I was like, the way she lives, she's probably just scraping by. She's always complaining about her veterans pension and stuff.
Right,
But she chose to live that way. She had the
right.
money in the bank, and she could have easily financed in cash any of the deals I was doing at the time. And I just never thought to ask because I made an assumption. So, like, pro tip for people listening, don't assume anything about your list. Just make the offer and let them
Right.
decide whether or not it's for them or not.
And remember, like if you have a deal that you're offering somebody equity on, and part of the cash flow, you find a deal that everybody wins, right? You're
Mhm.
doing them a service, right? They have money that's like your grandma's not making any interest. If what if she
Zero.
puts in a deal and now she has like she's on a fixed income, right?
Mhm.
And now she has an extra $300 a month from the cash flow, right? And she's
Yeah,
making more
that
than
would have made a lot more. That would have made a lot of sense.
yeah,
The whole thing is I just had a frame. I was like,
yeah,
you look at people and you just make assumptions. And I,
right.
I was talking to my son's like almost 4, and I was saying that
Uh,
to him. I'm like, never assume anything about anything because you'll
right.
usually
He's
be
like, shut up,
wrong.
dad, give me the ice cream. I don't want to talk about real estate. He's 4.
Let me show you how to put together a deal, son.
He's
On your
like,
fourth
let's put together
birthday.
the Lego first, and then we'll work on a deal.
Yeah, he's bugging me about the Lego again today. So What are some of your strategies that you're using right now to expand your list of prospective investors?
So I use Facebook a lot just to connect with people, and then I think it's interesting. Like it's surprising. The networking is kind of interesting because if you if you meet with somebody and you just connect, and like I guess you have a little bit of ulterior motive, but if you just say, okay, I'm going to this meeting, I'm not trying to get anything from them, right? We're maybe we provide an opportunity for each other, and then you say, hey, like anybody else interested, you find that like one person leads to someone else, leads to someone else in a different area, and you never thought you'd connect in this way, like I'm working on this deal in Alabama, and it's like I connect now with a real estate agent who's going to hopefully help me resell it.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about real estate. Hey, what's going on with you? Like, hey, do you ever find, people who have low equity or they can't sell their house? And then, oh, and do you know anybody, private money people? And that connects you to somebody else and somebody else, and then you just never know who is going to get to where.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think some people, I guess you kind of have to be somewhat strategic, and because you only have so much time.
Yeah.
But I think the step for everybody, and because you don't need any money for this, right? You don't need any money to connect with somebody and say like if I was like 20 and I had no money but I had some time, I would find an investor and say, hey, let me bird dog for you. Let me like I'll work for free. Let me run some numbers for you for free. Like let me just get some
Mm-hmm.
experience, right?
The
And
time or money equation. Yeah.
yeah. Like the education is worth the money. It's sometimes it's more important than the money. And
Well,
you
I
never
started
know.
thinking about money as actually a store of other people's time, because
Interesting.
when you use the money, you buy other people's time. That's all you do when you go to work. They gave you like like, oh, I got paid. Well, they bought your time. So they had
Right.
the money, then they exchange it for your time. Now you're storing your own time in your pocket. You
Right.
spend it, and the McDonald's guy gives you the burger, and now
Right.
you bought his time. So it's like money is actually an exchange of time, a store of time. So when you
Right.
look at real estate, you say, okay, marketing, let's say you don't have any money, you can't like bring in leads off of, say, the internet pay per
Right.
click. Well, you can go out with your time, start knocking on doors, get some money. Then that money is now other people's time stored. Get some other people to go out and start knocking on doors for you, and so on
Right.
and so on. So when I started thinking about money as a storage of other people's time, it really changed, because I was like, oh, it's a currency to buy things. Well, everything we buy is actually storage of other people's time. Someone
Right.
made a car. Well, that's everyone's labor stored into that
Right.
car. And then you exchange 40
Very
grand
interesting.
for this car, and it just keeps going. So it's really changed my perspective around money, because it's really, like you saved for 20 years to buy those properties.
Right.
You took all of your time, you saved it in your bank account. Now you took your time, you put it into these houses. Now other people go to work, spend their time to put the
Right.
money back
Interesting.
into your house so you can get your time back, and da da
Right.
da 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 da. It's
Somebody
crazy.
advised me. Yeah, somebody advised me in the community is like also if you ever hire somebody, that should be your focus. You're hiring somebody to do something that frees your time. So
Mm-hmm.
that you're paying, and that's the same thing. You're paying them to free up your time so that you
Mm-hmm.
can do either whatever you want or nothing, depending on, right?
Well, it depends on their value, right? Like when you go and stand in the ICU for an hour, it's not the same as the guy at McDonald's for an hour. So
Right.
you can take your, like, let's say you're making two or three times what they are. You can then take one third of your thing and get someone out there like a little mission. Oh, go get the flyers, go do the thing.
Right.
So
Right.
when uh when you're pitching these equity plays with these investors, because you're not asking for money so much as you're looking for long-term partnerships, right? You're
Right.
looking for 5-year, 10-year partnerships on
Right.
equity. How do you go about presenting that when approaching an investor?
I mean, I think the deal kind of speaks for itself. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that if the numbers are good, if it's something that benefits everybody, that should be the goal. It's win 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 win. Like these deals are amazing, especially these sub two deals. Like you got somebody who can't sell their house because they're underwater. They'd have to pay a closing. They're pre foreclosure. Okay, they win because you just like the house I got in Florida. The lady, she she had moved to Florida because they had specialized medical care there,
Yeah, they
and she
do.
bought a house that her daughter was going to live in and rent out from her. Well, her daughter flaked on her.
Mm-hmm.
And now she was done with her. She was ready to go home and she couldn't because she was falling behind. She was about to be foreclosed on. Um, and and so then I help her, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I get an asset that's going to cash flow, right? And then I resell it to somebody else. We sold it to somebody who can't get a traditional mortgage because they are self-employed.
She did a
So they don't have
note.
a W-2 income. So then I loan it to them. I get the money. This person gets a house that's theirs, which they wouldn't be able to get otherwise. And everybody's winning, right?
How many years was the note?
It's a 30-year loan. Yeah, yeah. I'm giving them
Awesome.
like a
Yeah.
full
So you
mortgage.
put
Yeah,
you put together like a private mortgage for them, and
exactly.
it's
That's
stacked
exactly
against the first mortgage, which is with I guess a bank of some sort, the
right.
original mortgage. Yeah.
So I have a 3.5 loan that I bought, and I think 7% I lent out at.
Yeah. And you're just in the middle making sure that everyone agrees and continues the agreement. I love
Yeah,
that.
and I make
I
sure
love
the
that.
original note is paid, and that I have a servicing company, like everything's taken care of.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the business. I was saying to another investor the other day, I was like, the bank's better to straighten up, or we're gonna realize that um we could do it without them to some degree. So it's
For
like
sure.
all of a sudden all the private capital and all the deal makers just be like, well, let's just get together and start our own bank and start doing mortgages. And now it's a new bank.
People do that. Yeah, people do that. Like they'll do that. You know.
So you've been starting with your Instagram. You were mentioning that your website's in the works. A lot of times for people to eventually, work with you and partner with you, they have to like, know, and trust you. So what are some ways that you're, doing that with your Instagram these days?
So I think that for me, it's the interaction. That
Mm,
is another asset that I have. Is I think that when when I tell people like, oh, I'm actually a doctor and I have 5 kids and I'm like 46 years old, right? I think it gives me, because there's a lot of people out there who watch a YouTube video, they do a mentorship, and they're just wholesaling, and there's a lot of sketchy things that happen. So I think there's a lot of like that. I think I get a little bit of a credibility in that. Okay, this guy is not
corny.
hustling. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
he's
not
not.
hustling
Well,
just
it's
because.
hard, man. When I started when I was 30, like even at 30,
Yeah.
um, my hair wasn't like this. It was like Justin Bieber across the front, and I was wearing hoodies and stuff because I came out of the music industry, and people didn't take me seriously until I started growing this beard, and like until I started getting a little bit of white in my beard. Because the same deal is like a lot of investors are in their 40s, in their 50s, because they worked to get into that first investment. And so I like what you said too, is that a lot of the things that are on your resume there is like, okay, 5 kids. Well, if someone trusted him enough to have five kids with them. 46. Well, he's and a doctor, which means he's dedicated enough to like spend
Right.
10 years going to school. And, people trust him to keep people alive. So I can probably trust him to invest my capital. Oh, and he took a line of credit out on his own house
Yeah.
and put his own money on the line first before he started asking other people for theirs. Like, there's a bunch of things on the resume that make a lot of sense as to why partnerships are going to be easy for you to obtain. I think it's just a matter of getting in front of the right people with things like
Yeah.
newsletters and social media, and really drumming
Right.
that up and presenting your resume to the world. I think would really open a lot more doors for that capital that you're looking for. So if people want to connect with you, they want to find out more, what should they do? How do they find you?
They can check the Instagram tag Dan_Grove1, or they could email me dgrove at 100 Gates Properties. That's the number 100 Gates Properties.
Mm-hmm.
And just hit me up in the email. We could chat if they're looking to invest. In fact, if you're a wholesaler out there, like, if you find something, especially if it's not, a creative deal, let me know, because I'll, maybe we could work something out, or I could post, you can find people if you're looking. Also, I connected with a
I
lot of
know you're
wholesalers.
in the sub 2 gang. You're wearing the hat. You guys are like a gang out there. Quit trying to recruit people into your
You don't have to join. Listen, don't join. It's fine. But if you have,
gang.
it's fine.
Don't join. Don't
By
be
the
in
way,
our gang.
I make no money. I get nothing from them. I get no kickbacks. But I'm saying like this, we have connected with a lot of wholesalers where they have deals they can't close, right?
Yeah, we
Like
were
if you're
talking
trying to,
about that on another call too
yeah, if you're
with
trying to get a cash deal, some people can't do 70% of after repair value. Some people they need, and the only option for them is a sub two, a seller finance, or whatever it is.
yeah.
And so I've connected with wholesalers where I pay a referral fee, and then I close the deal, and then they take a dead lead that would be nothing, and they can make $1,500 as a referral fee. Um, it's not like a real wholesale. You don't get them under contract. I get them under contract, but it's like a referral kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I've done that for people.
And I'm seeing that happening even in Canada, where we call it rent to own, where we get the vendor to hold the note and lease the property with a term. So it's similar. We just have different names for it. But yeah, instead of like a dead lead, because we'd be like, oh well, they're over their head or we can't make it work. Well, get creative, make it work. So I really appreciate you stopping by and check this guy out, find out more about him, go to his Instagram. I'm going to be following along. So I really appreciate your time, Dan.
Cool.
Okay, guys, until next time, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.